Have you ever felt different, like you were carrying a truth that others couldn't quite see? Maybe you've noticed it since you were young, that gentle knowing, that deeper understanding that set you apart. Those moments when you felt something greater stirring in your soul. What if I told you these weren't just random feelings or childhood imagination? What if these were divine markers, carefully placed in your life, showing you were chosen for something greater? I remember the exact moment I first realized I was different. I was 7 years old, standing in my bedroom, when suddenly I felt overwhelmed with emotions that weren't mine. I could sense the deep sadness of my mother, who was in another room, though she hadn't said a word about being sad. Back then, I thought something was wrong with me. Now I understand. It was one of the first signs of a divine calling. Today, we're going to explore something profound. Why certain children are marked for a divine purpose. The 10 unmistakable signs of being chosen. How to understand these spiritual markers in your own life. And most importantly, what to do with this divine sensitivity. And I want you to stay with me until the end, because the final sign we'll discuss might completely transform how you view your entire life journey. Before we explore these signs, let's ground ourselves in something timeless. In Jeremiah 1:5, God speaks a profound truth. He says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Think about that for a moment. Before your first breath, before your first step, before you even had a conscious thought, you were known. You were set apart. You were chosen with purpose. As we explore these signs together, I want you to do something important. Pay attention to which ones resonate deep within your spirit. Which ones make you think, yes, that's exactly what I experienced. The first sign we'll explore is perhaps the most subtle, yet it's often the earliest to manifest. It's something many chosen ones experience before they can even put it into words. Divine sensitivity. It's that inexplicable ability to feel what others feel, to sense the unseen, to know things without being told. It's like having an extra sense that picks up on the spiritual frequencies around you. Let me share something deeply personal. When I was 6 years old, I had an experience that my parents still talk about today. I was playing in our backyard when suddenly I stopped, went inside and found my mother. "Someone's coming," I told her. "Someone's sad and needs help." 20 minutes later, my aunt showed up at our door in tears, going through a crisis no one knew about. How could a 6-year-old have known? This wasn't coincidence, it was divine sensitivity at work. This sensitivity manifests in different ways. Perhaps you've experienced moments where you could feel the weight of someone else's pain, even when they were smiling. Maybe you've walked into a room and instantly known something was wrong, though everything looked normal. Or you might have felt drawn to pray for someone without knowing why, only to discover later they were going through exactly what you felt. In the Bible, we see this gift manifested in young Samuel, who could hear God's voice while others slept. In 1 Samuel 3:10, we read how Samuel responded, "Speak, for your servant is listening." Like Samuel, chosen children often have this natural attunement to the spiritual realm, even before they understand what it means. But here's what's important to understand about divine sensitivity. It's not just about feeling things. It's about being positioned to help, to heal, to understand at a deeper level. You were given this gift because you have a role to play in God's greater purpose. If you recognize this sensitivity in yourself, you might be wondering how to handle it. Here's what I've learned over the years. First, understand that your sensitivity is not a weakness. It's a divine strength. When you feel things deeply, when you sense things others miss, you're not being oversensitive. You're operating in a gift that was given to you for a purpose. Second, learn to create quiet spaces in your life. Divine sensitivity needs room to breathe. Take time each day to be still, to listen, to allow your spirit to process what it's receiving. This isn't just self-care, it's stewardship of a divine gift. Third, trust your discernment. When you sense something isn't right, when you feel prompted to pray, or when you have that inexplicable knowing, pay attention. These moments are often God speaking through your sensitivity. Some of you watching right now are feeling a deep resonance with what I'm sharing. You're remembering moments from your childhood where you felt things so deeply, where you knew things you couldn't explain. I want you to know those experiences were real. They were signs pointing to your purpose. This divine sensitivity is just the first sign we're exploring together. Each sign we'll discuss builds upon the others, creating a clear picture of how God marks those He's chosen for special purpose. But divine sensitivity isn't the only sign. Our second marker often appears in the quiet of night, when our conscious mind rests and our spirit is most receptive. I'm talking about prophetic dreams and spiritual visions. Now everyone dreams, but there's something distinctly different about the dreams of those who are chosen. These aren't just random images or processing of daily events. These are dreams that leave an imprint on your soul, dreams that carry messages, warnings, or glimpses into things yet to come. I'll never forget my first experience with this. I was 9 years old when I had a dream about my grandfather. In the dream, I saw him surrounded by bright light, and he was trying to tell me something important. I woke up with an overwhelming urge to call him. When my parents finally agreed to phone him that morning, we discovered he had been rushed to the hospital just hours before. How could a child's dream carry such significant timing? In the Bible, we see this gift manifested powerfully in Joseph, who became known as the dreamer. His dreams weren't just nighttime stories, they were divine communications that eventually saved nations. In Genesis 37:5 it says, "Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more." Like Joseph, many chosen ones experience resistance or misunderstanding when they share their spiritual experiences. The dreams of the chosen often carry distinct characteristics. First, they have unusual clarity. While regular dreams tend to fade quickly upon waking, these spiritual dreams remain vivid, sometimes for years. You might remember every detail, every emotion, every message as if it happened yesterday. Second, they carry a weight of significance. These aren't just dreams about flying or falling. They often contain guidance, warnings, or revelations that prove meaningful in your waking life. Third, they frequently feature spiritual symbols or divine encounters. Maybe you've dreamed of angels, seen loved ones who've passed delivering messages, or received wisdom that seemed beyond your years. Some of you watching might be remembering dreams you had as children that you could never quite explain. Dreams that felt different, more real, more important than others. Perhaps you saw events before they happened, or received comfort during difficult times through your dreams. I want to share something particularly important about this gift. It often appears during times of transition or spiritual significance. Many chosen ones report having powerful dreams around the ages of 7, 12, and 21, key periods of spiritual awakening. But here's what's crucial to understand about prophetic dreams. They're not given to frighten us or to make us feel strange. They're given as tools for guidance, protection, and preparation. They're part of your spiritual equipment, helping you navigate your divine purpose. If you recognize this gift in your life, here's how to steward it wisely. Keep a dream journal. When you receive significant dreams, write them down immediately. Include every detail you can remember, no matter how small it seems. Often the significance of certain elements only becomes clear later. Pay attention to patterns. Notice if your dreams tend to come at certain times, or if they share common themes or symbols. This can help you better understand how God communicates with you specifically. Practice discernment. Not every dream carries spiritual significance. Learn to distinguish between regular dreams and those that carry divine weight. The main difference? Prophetic dreams leave you with a sense of holy awe, and their message aligns with God's character and word. Remember, in Acts 2:17, God promises, "In the last days I will pour out my Spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your young men will see visions, your old men will dream dreams." This gift of spiritual dreams isn't just an Old Testament phenomenon. It's part of God's ongoing communication with His chosen ones. Some of you might have suppressed or dismissed your dreams because they seemed too unusual or because others didn't understand. I want to encourage you. These experiences are part of your divine calling. They're one of the ways God has marked you as chosen from childhood. As we prepare to explore our third sign, take a moment to reflect on your own dream experiences. Have you received dreams that proved prophetic? Dreams that provided guidance or comfort? Dreams that seemed to connect you with the divine? These aren't coincidences. They're confirmation of your calling. This brings us to our third sign, one that often works hand in hand with divine sensitivity, spiritual empathy. But this isn't just about feeling what others feel. It's a profound soul-level connection that goes beyond normal emotional understanding. Think back to your childhood. Were you that child who couldn't walk past someone crying without feeling moved to help? Did you find yourself carrying the weight of others' pain, even when you didn't fully understand why? This wasn't just being emotionally sensitive, it was a divine gift beginning to manifest. Let me share something personal. When I was in elementary school, I had a classmate who always smiled, always seemed happy. But every time I looked at her, I felt an overwhelming sadness. No one else seemed to notice anything wrong. Months later, we discovered she was going through severe family problems at home. She later told me that my simple acts of kindness during that time helped her hold on to hope. This is what spiritual empathy looks like. It's not just feeling emotions, it's receiving divine insights into the hearts of others. It's being given eyes to see beneath the surface, beyond the masks people wear. In the Bible, we see Jesus demonstrate this perfect spiritual empathy. Mark 6:34 tells us, "When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd." He didn't just see their physical presence, he perceived their spiritual condition, their deep need. For those chosen with this gift, empathy manifests in unique ways. You might find yourself drawn to people who are hurting even before they show any signs of pain. It's as if your spirit recognizes their need before your natural senses do. You might experience what I call spiritual burden bearing, times when you feel called to pray for someone with an intensity that seems to come from beyond yourself. These aren't random feelings, they're divine assignments. You might have an unusual ability to discern the root of people's pain, seeing past their words to the deeper wounds they carry. This insight isn't for judgment, it's for healing and restoration. But here's something crucial to understand about spiritual empathy. It's not meant to overwhelm you. If you've felt burdened by the weight of others' pain, if you've wondered why you feel things so deeply, know this: God never gives us more than we can bear with His strength. This gift comes with specific responsibilities and needs careful stewardship. First, establish healthy boundaries. Your empathy is a gift, not a burden. Learn to distinguish between what you're called to carry and what you need to release to God. Second, develop regular spiritual self-care practices. Spend time in prayer, meditation, and worship. These aren't just religious activities, they're essential maintenance for your spiritual gift. Third, use your empathy with wisdom. Not everyone is ready to have their deeper issues addressed. Ask God for discernment in how and when to share what you perceive. Some of you watching right now are feeling a deep resonance with this. You're remembering times when you knew exactly what someone needed, times when you felt called to pray for someone without knowing why, times when your empathy led to divine appointments. I want to speak directly to those who might have felt overwhelmed by this gift. Perhaps you've tried to shut it down, to feel less, to be normal. But here's the truth. Your spiritual empathy isn't a weakness to overcome. It's a divine strength to be developed. Consider this. In a world growing increasingly disconnected, your ability to truly feel, understand, and connect with others' pain is more valuable than ever. You're not just feeling emotions, you're being used as a vessel of God's compassion. Remember what Paul writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. God comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive. Your empathy isn't random, it's purposeful. It's one of the ways God has equipped you to bring His healing to a hurting world. As we prepare to explore our fourth sign, take a moment to reflect on how this spiritual empathy has manifested in your life. Have you experienced these deep connections, these divine burdens, these moments of supernatural understanding? Each experience has been preparing you for your greater purpose. Our fourth sign is something that often puzzled parents and teachers: natural wisdom. This isn't just being smart or good at school. It's a divine understanding that seems to transcend age and experience. Have you ever looked back at things you said as a child and wondered, how did I know that? Maybe you gave advice that seemed beyond your years, or understood concepts that adults found surprising. This wasn't just precociousness, it was divine wisdom flowing through you. I remember sitting at my grandmother's kitchen table when I was 8 years old. An adult family friend was sharing her problems, and without thinking, I spoke up with a perspective that made everyone stop and stare. "Out of the mouths of babes," my grandmother whispered. But it wasn't just a child saying something cute. It was divine wisdom finding its voice. In Scripture, we see this demonstrated powerfully in the life of young Jesus. Luke 2:46-47 tells us that at 12 years old, he sat among the teachers in the temple, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. While Jesus was divine, this passage shows us that spiritual wisdom can manifest even in youth. This natural wisdom often shows itself in distinct ways. You might have found yourself understanding complex spiritual concepts without anyone explaining them to you. Things that others struggled to grasp seem to make natural sense in your spirit. Perhaps you've had moments where words of wisdom flowed through you, and later you wondered where they came from. It was as if something greater than yourself was speaking through you. Maybe you've noticed a pattern of people, even adults, coming to you for advice or perspective, sensing there's something different about your understanding. But here's what's crucial to understand about this divine wisdom. It's not for building up ourselves. It's given for the benefit of others, for bringing light to dark situations, for offering heaven's perspective in earthly circumstances. I've noticed this wisdom often appears most strongly in 3 areas. First, in understanding people's hearts. Those with this gift often see past surface behaviors to the root causes, offering insights that bring healing rather than judgment. Second, in perceiving spiritual realities. You might naturally understand spiritual principles that others find complex or confusing. Third, in providing solutions to seemingly impossible situations. When others see dead ends, you often perceive divine possibilities. This gift comes with both privilege and responsibility. As Proverbs 11:30 tells us, "The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and the one who is wise saves lives." Your wisdom isn't just for you, it's meant to bring life to others. If you recognize this gift in yourself, here's how to steward it well. Stay humble. Remember that this wisdom isn't generated by you, it flows through you. The moment we become proud of our wisdom is the moment we begin to lose it. Continue to learn and grow. Having natural wisdom doesn't mean we know everything. The wisest people are often the most eager to learn more. Wait for the right timing. Sometimes having wisdom means knowing when to share it and when to hold it. Not everyone is ready to receive deep insights, and timing is often as important as the message itself. Some of you watching are suddenly remembering instances from your childhood, moments where you said or understood things that now, looking back, clearly came from a divine source. These weren't coincidences or lucky guesses. They were early manifestations of your calling. For those who might have felt strange or out of place because of this gift, perhaps you were called an old soul or too mature for your age. Understand that these were actually confirmations of your divine marking. You weren't strange, you were chosen. This natural wisdom isn't meant to separate you from others, but to equip you to help them. Like Solomon, who asked God for wisdom, not for himself, but to better serve his people. Your gift of wisdom is meant to be a blessing to those around you. As we prepare to discuss our fifth sign, reflect on how this divine wisdom has shown up in your life. Have you experienced these moments of supernatural understanding? Times when wisdom flowed through you unexpectedly. These weren't random occurrences. They were divine appointments, preparing you for your purpose. Our fifth sign is something that many chosen ones have experienced, often without realizing its significance. Divine protection. This isn't just about being lucky or fortunate. It's about experiencing supernatural preservation that defies explanation. Think back to your childhood. Were there moments where you narrowly escaped danger in ways that seemed impossible? Times when you were protected from harm in ways that made others say, "I can't believe you walked away from that." These weren't just coincidences, they were divine interventions. Let me share something personal that still gives me chills when I think about it. When I was 5 years old, I was playing in our front yard when suddenly I felt strongly compelled to step back, not even knowing why. Seconds later, a car swerved off the road, hitting exactly where I had been standing. My mother, who watched from the window, said she'd never seen anything like it. It wasn't my reflexes. I moved before there was any visible danger. This kind of protection shows up in Scripture repeatedly. Think of Daniel in the lion's den, or the 3 Hebrew young men in the fiery furnace. Psalm 91:11-12 tells us, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." For those marked from childhood, this divine protection often manifests in specific ways. There are the near misses. Situations where danger passed so close you could feel it, yet somehow you were preserved. It's as if an invisible hand moved you out of harm's way at just the right moment. Then there are the divine warnings, those unexplainable feelings or urgings that kept you from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That time you felt you shouldn't get in that car or take that trip, only to later discover what you avoided. And perhaps most remarkably, there are the supernatural interventions, times when the laws of nature seemed to bend around you, when what should have happened simply didn't. But here's what's crucial to understand about divine protection. It's not given because you're more special than others. It's given because you have a purpose to fulfill, a destiny that hasn't yet been completed. I've noticed this protection often operates most strongly in 3 areas. First, in physical preservation. Many chosen ones can recount multiple instances where they were protected from accidents or harm in inexplicable ways. Second, in spiritual protection. You might have noticed an unusual shielding from negative spiritual influences, even before you understood what they were. Third, in divine timing. Sometimes the protection comes in the form of delays or redirections that only later prove to be life-saving detours. For those who recognize this pattern in their lives, here's what you need to understand. This protection isn't meant to make you reckless or presumptuous. It's meant to give you confidence in pursuing your divine purpose, knowing that you're being watched over. It's also not a guarantee against all hardship. Sometimes the protection is in going through the fire, not avoiding it completely. But even in those times, there's a supernatural preservation at work. Most importantly, this divine protection is connected to your purpose. It's not just about keeping you safe. It's about keeping you available for what God has called you to do. Some of you watching are suddenly remembering incidents from your past, moments where you should have been harmed but weren't, times when danger passed by so close you could feel it. These weren't just lucky escapes. They were divine preservations, confirmations that your life has purpose. For those who might have questioned why you survived when others didn't, when logic says you shouldn't have made it, understand that this protection wasn't random. You were preserved for a reason, kept for a purpose that's still unfolding. Remember what David wrote in Psalm 139:16, All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Your protection isn't just about survival, it's about destiny. As we prepare to explore our sixth sign, take a moment to reflect on the divine protection in your own life. Have you experienced these supernatural preservations? These divine warnings? These inexplicable escapes? Each one is a testimony to the calling on your life, a reminder that you're being kept for a purpose. Our sixth sign takes us into the realm of the mind and heart, spiritual curiosity. This isn't just casual interest in religious matters. It's a deep, burning desire to understand the things of God that often manifests from our earliest years. Remember being that child who asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. Not just the usual, "Why is the sky blue?" questions, but deep, searching questions about God, life, death, and purpose. That wasn't just childhood curiosity. It was your spirit reaching for its source. I remember sitting in Sunday school at age 6, and while other children were content with simple Bible stories, I kept asking, "But why? What does this mean? How does God do that?" My teachers would often exchange glances, unsure how to handle questions that went far beyond the prepared lesson. Now I understand that hunger for spiritual understanding was a sign of divine marking. This trait appears prominently in Scripture. Look at young Samuel in the temple or Daniel in Babylon. These were individuals who, from their youth, showed an unusual interest in spiritual matters. Even Jesus at 12 years old was found in the temple, asking questions that amazed the religious teachers. This spiritual curiosity often manifests in distinct ways. You might have found yourself drawn to spiritual conversations from an early age, fascinated by discussions about God when other children were more interested in play. Perhaps you've always had a deep desire to understand the why behind spiritual practices, not content with simply following traditions without understanding their meaning. Maybe you've experienced what I call divine curiosity moments, times when a spiritual question seized your attention so completely that you couldn't rest until you found an answer. But here's what's crucial to understand about this spiritual curiosity. It's not just about acquiring knowledge. It's about developing a deeper connection with the divine, about preparing you for a role in God's greater purpose. This gift often expresses itself in three main areas. First, in theological understanding. Those with this gift often grasp complex spiritual concepts with unusual ease, as if remembering something they already knew rather than learning something new. Second, in existential questioning. You might have found yourself pondering the deeper questions of existence long before others your age showed interest in such matters. Third, in spiritual discernment. Your curiosity often leads you to discover spiritual truths that others might miss, seeing connections and patterns in spiritual matters. For those who recognize this trait in themselves, here's what you need to understand. Your questions aren't a sign of doubt. They're a sign of depth. Just as Solomon asked God for wisdom, your desire to understand deeper things is pleasing to God. Don't be afraid to wrestle with difficult spiritual concepts. Proverbs 25:2 tells us, "It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. To search out a matter is the glory of kings." Remember that this curiosity isn't just for your own benefit. The understanding you gain is meant to be shared with others who are seeking answers. Some of you watching are remembering times when your spiritual questions made others uncomfortable, when you were told to just have faith instead of receiving real answers. I want you to know those questions weren't wrong. They were part of your calling. This spiritual curiosity often comes with unique challenges. You might have felt isolated because few others shared your deep interest in spiritual matters. You might have struggled to find others who could engage with your questions at the level you needed. But here's the beautiful truth. This hunger for spiritual understanding is actually a gift from God. It's like a divine homing device, drawing you closer to your Creator and your purpose. The prophet Jeremiah wrote, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." Jeremiah 29:13. Your spiritual curiosity is not random. It's a divine invitation to deeper understanding. As we prepare to explore our seventh sign, reflect on how this spiritual curiosity has shaped your life. Have you experienced this deep hunger for spiritual understanding? This drive to know more about God and His ways? These aren't just personality traits. They're divine markers pointing to your special purpose. Our seventh sign delves into one of the most mysterious manifestations of divine choosing, unexplained knowledge. This isn't about being well-read or having a good memory. It's about knowing things you were never taught, understanding things you never learned. Have you ever had moments where information simply came to you, knowledge that you couldn't explain? Times when you knew things about people or situations that you had no natural way of knowing? This wasn't imagination or coincidence, it was divine revelation at work. I'll never forget an experience I had at age 10. A visitor came to our church, someone I'd never met. As they walked past, I suddenly knew they were carrying a deep grief about their mother. Later, they shared their story. Their mother had passed away just weeks before, something no one in our church knew. How could a child have known this? It wasn't a lucky guess. It was unexplained knowledge. This gift appears throughout Scripture. Think of Daniel interpreting dreams he'd never heard, or Joseph understanding symbols no one had explained to him. In 1 Corinthians 12:8, Paul speaks of the message of knowledge, divine insights given by the Spirit. This unexplained knowledge often manifests in specific patterns. Sometimes it comes as instant understanding about a person or situation, knowledge that bypasses natural learning or observation. Other times it appears as technical or practical knowledge, understanding how to do things you've never been taught. And sometimes it comes as spiritual insights, grasping biblical truths or spiritual principles without formal teaching. But here's what's vital to understand about this gift. It's not given to make us seem special or mysterious. It's given for the benefit of others, to help, to heal, to guide, and to protect. I've observed this knowledge operating in three main ways. First, in personal ministry, knowing exactly what someone needs to hear, even when they haven't shared their struggle. Second, in problem solving, seeing solutions to situations that seem impossible to resolve through normal means. Third, in spiritual warfare, understanding the root of spiritual issues and knowing how to address them effectively. For those who recognize this gift in their lives, here's crucial guidance. This knowledge requires careful stewardship. Not everything we know needs to be shared. Wisdom is knowing when to speak and when to hold back. It's important to test this knowledge. While it may come suddenly, it should align with Scripture and bring peace, not confusion. Remember that this gift operates in partnership with humility. The moment we think we know everything is often when the flow of divine knowledge diminishes. Some of you watching are remembering instances where you just knew things, information that came to you without explanation, insights that proved remarkably accurate. You might have kept these experiences to yourself, unsure how to explain them to others. This type of knowledge often came with its own challenges. Perhaps you were accused of being nosy or intrusive when you shared what you knew. Maybe you struggled with doubting yourself, wondering if you could trust these divine insights. But understand this, your ability to receive unexplained knowledge isn't random. It's part of your divine equipment given to you for a purpose. As Proverbs 2:6 tells us, "For the Lord gives wisdom. From His mouth come knowledge and understanding." This gift isn't meant to make you feel strange or isolated. It's meant to make you useful in God's kingdom, to help you serve others with supernatural insight and understanding. When this knowledge comes, it often arrives with a sense of divine purpose. It's not just random information, it's specific knowledge for specific situations. Like a key crafted for a particular lock, this divine insight often fits perfectly into the circumstances where it's needed. As we prepare to explore our eighth sign, take a moment to reflect on the unexplained knowledge you've received throughout your life. Have you experienced these moments of divine insight? These instances of knowing what you couldn't have known naturally? Each of these experiences was preparing you for your greater purpose. Our eighth sign speaks to the very core of divine calling, the compassionate heart. This isn't just being nice or kind. It's a supernatural capacity for love and compassion that often manifests from our earliest years. Think back to your childhood. Were you that child who couldn't bear to see anyone hurting? The one who would give away your lunch to someone who needed it, or stand up for those being bullied, even when it cost you something? This wasn't just good behavior, it was divine love expressing itself through you. I remember being 7 years old and bringing home stray animals, sharing my snacks with kids who had none, always drawn to the ones others overlooked. My parents would say, "Your heart is bigger than you are." They were right, because it wasn't just my heart operating. It was divine compassion flowing through a chosen vessel. This trait is beautifully illustrated in Scripture. Look at young David, who, while still a shepherd boy, risked his life to protect his flock from predators. Or consider Joseph, who, even after being sold into slavery by his brothers, still had the compassion to forgive and save them years later. This supernatural compassion often shows itself in distinct ways. You might have found yourself deeply moved by suffering that others seem to overlook, feeling a responsibility to help even when no one else did. Perhaps you've experienced what I call divine burden, times when the pain of others became so real to you that you felt compelled to act, to pray, to do something to help. Maybe you've noticed that people naturally come to you with their problems, sensing in you a heart that truly cares, not just out of duty, but from genuine love. But here's what's crucial to understand about this compassionate heart. It's not just about feeling deeply. It's about being equipped to bring God's love to a hurting world in a tangible way. I've observed this gift operating in 3 primary dimensions. First, in recognition, seeing the pain that others miss, noticing the ones who are overlooked or forgotten. Second, in response, knowing how to help in ways that truly matter, not just surface solutions but heart-level care. Third, in restoration, having the capacity to stick with people through their healing journey, not just offering quick fixes. For those who carry this gift, here's essential wisdom. Your compassion is not a weakness, it's a strength. In a world that often celebrates hardness of heart, your sensitivity is actually a divine asset. Learn to balance compassion with wisdom. Not every person who triggers your compassionate heart is meant to be your personal ministry. Remember that your capacity to care comes with a responsibility to maintain healthy boundaries. Even Jesus, the most compassionate being ever to walk the earth, took time to rest and recharge. Some of you watching are remembering times when your heart seemed to break for others, when you felt their pain so deeply it was almost physical. You might have wondered if you were too sensitive, too easily affected by the suffering around you. This depth of feeling often came with its challenges. Perhaps you've been overwhelmed by the amount of need you see, or struggled with feeling helpless in the face of others' pain. But understand this, your compassionate heart isn't a random personality trait. It's a divine gift, carefully placed within you for a purpose. As 1 John 3:17 asks, "If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person?" Your capacity for compassion is actually a reflection of God's own heart. It's one of the most powerful ways He works through His chosen ones to touch the lives of others. This gift often comes with a special ability to see beyond surface behaviors to the heart of matters. Where others might see problems, you see pain. Where others see difficult people, you see wounded souls in need of healing. As we prepare to explore our 9th sign, reflect on how this compassionate heart has operated in your life. Have you experienced this supernatural capacity for love, this divine compulsion to help others? These aren't burdens to bear, they're gifts to share, marks of your divine calling. Our 9th sign reveals one of the most powerful markers of divine choosing, spiritual resilience. This isn't just about being tough or bouncing back from difficulty. It's about carrying a supernatural strength that defies natural explanation. Have you noticed that despite facing challenges that should have broken you, something deep within kept you standing? That even in your darkest moments, there was an inexplicable strength sustaining you? This wasn't just willpower, it was divine resilience at work. I remember facing intense bullying in school, situations that should have crushed my spirit. But somehow I maintained an inner joy, a strength that couldn't be explained. Other kids would ask, "How are you still smiling?" I didn't have an answer then, but now I understand. It was supernatural resilience, a divine strength beyond my years. This characteristic appears powerfully in Scripture. Consider Joseph, who maintained his integrity and purpose through betrayal, false accusation, and imprisonment. Or Daniel, who faced lion's den and fiery furnace, yet remained unshakable in his faith. This spiritual resilience often manifests in specific ways. You might have noticed that situations that devastate others don't seem to destroy your spirit, even though you feel the pain deeply. Perhaps you've experienced what I call divine bouncing back, an ability to recover from setbacks with a speed that surprises everyone, including yourself. Maybe you found yourself being the strong one in crisis situations, able to maintain faith and hope when others are losing theirs. But here's what's crucial to understand about spiritual resilience. It's not about being invulnerable. It's about having access to supernatural strength in your moments of weakness. I've observed this resilience operating in 3 key areas. First, in personal trials, maintaining peace and purpose, even in the midst of intense personal challenges. Second, in spiritual warfare, standing firm against opposition that seems designed to break your spirit. Third, in sustaining others, having the strength not only to endure your own trials, but to help others through theirs. For those who recognize this gift in their lives, here's essential understanding. Your resilience isn't just natural toughness, it's supernatural empowerment. When you should have broken, you bent. When you should have given up, you pressed on. This strength isn't meant to make you self-reliant. In fact, it often works strongest when you're most aware of your need for God. Remember what Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians chapter 12:10, "For when I am weak, then I am strong." Your resilience shines brightest in moments of acknowledged weakness. Some of you watching are remembering times when you surprised even yourself with your ability to endure. Times when others said, "I don't know how you're getting through this," but something in you just kept going. This resilience often came with its own set of challenges. Perhaps you've been misunderstood, with people assuming you're not really hurting because you handle pain so well. Maybe you felt the weight of others' expectations, being the one everyone assumes will always be strong. But understand this, your spiritual resilience isn't random. It's part of your divine equipment, given to you because of the purpose you're called to fulfill. As Isaiah 40:31 promises, "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." This resilience isn't just about surviving. It's about thriving in circumstances that should overwhelm you. It's about carrying a strength that testifies to God's power working through you. When this resilience operates, it often comes with a deep inner knowing that no matter what happens, you'll make it through. Not because you're so strong, but because the one who calls you is faithful. As we prepare to explore our 10th and final sign, reflect on how this spiritual resilience has manifested in your life. Have you experienced this supernatural strength, this divine ability to endure? These aren't just survival mechanisms, they're divine gifts, preparing you for your greater purpose. We've arrived at our 10th and final sign, the one that ties all others together, divine connection. This isn't just about being religious or spiritual. It's about having a profound personal relationship with the divine that's been present since your earliest memories. Think back to your childhood. Did you have conversations with God that felt as natural as breathing? Did you sense a presence, a companion that others couldn't see? This wasn't imagination. It was divine connection manifesting in its purest form. I remember being 4 years old, sitting in my backyard, having what my parents thought were imaginary conversations. But I knew even then that I was talking with someone real, someone who knew me completely. It wasn't until years later that I understood. These weren't childhood fantasies, but early expressions of divine connection. This intimate connection appears throughout Scripture. Samuel heard God's voice as a child. David wrote psalms of deep communion while still a young shepherd. Mary, barely a teenager, had such a profound connection that she was chosen to carry the Messiah. This divine connection often reveals itself in unique ways. You might have experienced what I call holy moments, times when the presence of God felt so real you could almost touch it. Perhaps you've had an ongoing dialogue with God that's felt more natural than many human relationships. Maybe you've noticed a constant awareness of divine presence, like a background harmony to your daily life. But here's what's crucial to understand about this connection. It's not just about feeling God's presence. It's about being in constant communion with your Creator, walking in ongoing dialogue with the divine. I've observed this connection operating in 3 distinct dimensions. First, in intimacy, a deep, personal knowing that goes beyond religious practice into genuine relationship. Second, in guidance, a constant sense of divine leading, like having an internal compass aligned with heaven. Third, in partnership, working with God rather than just for Him, experiencing genuine collaboration in your daily life. For those who recognize this sign in their lives, here's profound truth. Your connection isn't dependent on your performance or perfection. It's a gift of grace, established before you could even understand it. This relationship isn't meant to be compartmentalized into spiritual times. It's meant to infuse every moment, every decision, every aspect of your life. Remember Jesus' words in John 15:15. I no longer call you servants. Instead, I have called you friends. This connection is about friendship with God. Some of you watching are remembering moments of profound divine encounter, times when heaven felt so close you could almost step into it. Times when God's presence was more real than anything in the physical world. This connection often came with unique challenges. Perhaps you've struggled to explain experiences that seemed too sacred for words. Maybe you felt different from others who didn't seem to experience God in such a personal way. But understand this, your divine connection isn't just a fantasy or emotional experience. It's the foundation of your calling, the core of who you are. As Acts 17:28 says, in Him we live and move and have our being. This connection is what empowers all the other signs we've discussed. It's what gives wisdom to your words, power to your prayers, depth to your empathy, and strength to your resilience. When this connection operates in its fullness, it transforms everything. Ordinary moments become sacred. Daily tasks become divine appointments. Life itself becomes a continuous conversation with God. As we conclude our exploration of these 10 signs, understand that they all flow from this one source, your connection with God. Every other sign we've discussed, divine sensitivity, prophetic dreams, spiritual empathy, natural wisdom, divine protection, spiritual curiosity, unexplained knowledge, compassionate heart, and spiritual resilience, they all spring from this foundational reality. You are connected to God in a unique and profound way. If you've recognized these signs in your life, understand that you're not just experiencing random spiritual phenomena. You're seeing evidence of a divine calling that was placed on your life before you were born. These signs aren't meant to make you feel special or superior. They're meant to equip you for service, to prepare you for your role in God's greater purpose. Remember, being chosen isn't about being better than others. It's about being equipped to serve them. These signs aren't for your glory, but for God's purposes to be fulfilled through your life. Take a moment now to reflect on how these signs have manifested in your own journey. Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to understand their own calling. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the divine markers in our lives. Until next time, remember, you were chosen for a purpose, marked for a mission, and equipped for a destiny that's still unfolding.